start the driving video now in the very last year of the real Packards, the 1956 Packard 400 two-door hardtop coupe. The history of Packard goes all the way back to 1899 with two brothers in Warren, Ohio. There was James Ward Packard, the mechanical genius, and his brother William Dowd Packard, who was the businessman. Perfect combination for starting a new automobile company. Much the same as Rolls and Royce in England. They built their first car in 1899. Single-cylinder car, and so well done that people wanted to buy more, and they started a company to manufacture these cars. This is in Warren, Ohio. A few years after that, about 1902, a millionaire tycoon by the name of Henry B. Joy and several of his associates, all rich, became so impressed with the quality of the cars that they approached James Ward and William Dowd, who by this time were able to build about one car per day, very small scale production. They approached them with the offer to put up the money to finance the building of a much larger factory so they could turn out a lot more cars. And the stipulation was that it had to move from Warren, Ohio to Detroit. And the Packard brothers agreed. And so in 1903, a contract was signed with the foremost industrial designer of the time, Albert Kahn. They purchased 66.4 acres out in the country from Detroit on what was called Grand Boulevard. Perfect name for the type of car they wanted to produce. And within 3 months, Packard moved into the new facility and began producing a lot more cars, still with the very high quality they were known for. James Ward Packard stayed on as the general manager with Henry B. Joy as the president. And in 1909, James Ward left the company. Henry B. Joy became the president, and he hired a new general manager, Alvin McCauley, who stayed with the company in that position until 1947. Alvin McCauley quickly hired a chief engineer, very respected, Colonel Jesse Vinson. And in 1913, Vinson was one of the things he designed was a new V12 engine for airplanes. And with the coming of World War I, government contracts were laid for a lot of these Liberty aircraft engines. So the Leland Lincoln, their first contract was to build these, but the engines were designed by Packard. In 1914, Cadillac startled the high-priced car world, where all the competing cars were 6 cylinders, by introducing the first American V8 engine. That was 1914. Well, Colonel Vinson already had, based on his Liberty V12 experience, design in mind for a Packard V12 engine. This was already in the works before Cadillac introduced the V8, and in 1916 Packard introduced what they called the Twin Six, which was a V12 engine. At this time, in the 20s and into the 30s, barely into the 30s, the top 3 luxury cars were Packard, Pierce Era, and Peerless, in that order of sales. Peerless failed due to the Depression in 1931. Pierce Era, having been acquired by Studebaker, and then also sold again back to a number of investors in Buffalo, New York, where Pierce Era was located, became just Pierce Era again. They hung on until 1938, when a very few Pierce Era cars were built, and not many in 37 or 36 that left Packard. Packard in the Classic Era in 1932 introduced another V12 engine. The Twin Six had been out of production for several years, replaced by a straight 8, and the new Packard V12 engine was 445 cubic inches in displacement, 160 horsepower, 10 more than the comparable Lincoln engine. And within a couple of years, the Packard V12 was up to 175 horsepower. That engine was built through 1939, and after that Packards became straight 8s exclusively until 1955, when their first V8 was built. And this 1956, the V8 had become enlarged to 374 cubic inches, the largest automobile engine being produced in the United States at that time, and it had 290 horsepower. Packard had lasted till 1957, and the name did, but the cars were, some people call them Packard bakers. They were just Studebakers with a little bit of Packard styling thrown in and Packard names put on them. And then they were not built in Detroit at East Grand Boulevard, but in South Bend, Indiana, where Studebaker was located. In 57, this engine would have been enlarged to about 440 cubic inches with a whole brand new line of senior Packard cars. Packard had a lot of firsts during its existence, which really ended in the 3rd week in June, when the giant factory in East Grand Boulevard had to be abandoned. It had over 1.6 million square feet by this time. This particular car was built just a couple of weeks before the last Packard, so it's really one of the last ones. But among the first that Packard had was the first car to offer air conditioning in 1940, power brakes, even earlier, a few years back in the 1930s. This 56 model had a number of innovations. The first car to offer as an option, this car doesn't have it, power door lock. They had a self-leveling system based on torsion bars, electrically operated, which this car has. They had an electrically operated push-button transmission, which has 6 buttons on a pod that comes out from the steering column right under the driver's right-hand drive. You can tell that this car runs very nicely. The transmission shifts well. I might mention, of all the independent car manufacturers,